What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Blizzard just released the Kiriko Developer update and as well a blog post that goes in further detail about the hero's origin and what we can expect from her playstyle. Having played her at the Creator Summit as well, I'll review the things they've said and give my own insights. Kiriko is a hybrid character, both in her design and her playstyle. And at least for me, I'm reading into this as a statement about Overwatch 2 as a game. The release of Overwatch 1 with the Dragon cinematic between Hanzo and Genji was a pivotal marketing push for Overwatch 1. So Blizzard lining up a new hero to coincide with the release of the game being a Shimada both returns the game back to its original roots while putting a flag in the ground for the new updated 5v5 gameplay. Kiriko pays respect to the old while embracing the power of the new, and I think Overwatch 2 does that. But also narratively speaking, I think it's super cool that the character can help embody confidence in multiple types of strong women. Her grandmother raising her with the foundation of principles and traditions, maybe some of them being a bit outdated, and her mother being more modern, fierce, probably a bit more independent, makes Kiriko a very interesting character in the grand scheme of Overwatch, as well as an amazing playstyle, which I'm excited for you guys to eventually get to experience. It is like if Genji was a support. With the skill shots and timing and movement, she's a ton of fun to play and interact with, in my opinion. The devs say that experienced players will love her and DPS players will really love her. In the blog post, they try to make her seem like she's noob friendly at the same time, despite having such a high skill ceiling kit. I think I'll say for players that come from more traditional shooter games, the, let's say, DPS Moira mindset will get more value with Kiriko. But obviously, maximizing her value will require for her supportive elements as well, which is indicative from even just the art of the character itself, where originally she had a big spinning blade, like a deadly massive fidget spinner. That was toned down when she became a support, which actually is like a lot cooler to me and more accurately fits her playstyle, I think. The healing Ofuda paper talismans she throws are really smooth to use. They got a cool sound effect. They're not so hard to target, but you can miss with them, so you want to pay attention to what you're doing and properly select the single target you want to heal when they need it. They'll turn yellow when you're hitting your target and change if you're missing, which is some great visual feedback. But they have a travel time, which is pretty important because like a Zen Orb or a Brig Pack, it gets to the target pretty quick. So she's not that great at healing from range, which is why it's important for her to teleport around, of course. The devs explain that you can preempt the heal because it's slow, but also it fires multiple in a row. So sort of like a Brig Pack, if you think someone's about to go in and take damage and you need to multitask, maybe you toss the heal over here, go do some damage over there, which makes for some fun Overwatch hero shooter decision making. The healing of Fuda is supposed to connotate natural healing. So she says things like the breeze brings relief or like a gentle rain when she heals allies. But that's contrasted harshly to her kunai knives, her primary attack, which have so low of damage, you probably want to focus on healing unless you think you can hit the headshot on the target. But if you do land headshots, it does additional critical damage. We played it at 3 times, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that drop because it's so severe. It's not so hard to melt a Roadhog if you're like jiggle peeking him for a while. So that's probably going to get tuned. But remember, they're making the attack look kind of easy to use on the training bots, but there's a lot of ranges where how slow it comes out is like super obvious. The speed might be similar to Zenyatta's Orb of Destruction, but he has way more of those and can kind of spam them out more freely. Whereas the capacity for the kunai knives, I thought was like maybe 6. And then she's got to go into a reload animation. So you really got to put up or shut up when you're in the cut, or hit your shots when you're engaged with the enemy, because hitting body shots against something probably means you're going to lose the duel to just about everything because the time to kill is not good enough. But if you do hit headshots, well, then she is just straight up a DPS and better than a lot of them. Going up against a sniper, for example, if you're against a weak Widowmaker player, not going to be too hard to line up a headshot on a slow moving scoped up character like Ana or Widow. And when you do that, she'll say a mischievous trash talking line like, "I thought you were the sniper," which reminds me a little bit of when Mercy talks trash when she eliminates a DPS in Overwatch 1. She says something like, "Don't tell your friends about that." Well, they're leaning on those voice lines in their coverage covering the game because I think that's something we haven't actually got the full experience of yet we've played the beta, but I don't think they've had all the voice lines in the beta, whereas Kiriko has quite a few and hidden ones between like Hanzo and Genji, which are important to the lore. This is definitely something that I think buffs the PvP experience in Overwatch 2 quite a lot. There's tons of voice lines in the new game. Can't wait for it to properly release. Now, Kiriko also has wall climb, which goes to her connection to the other Shimadas she trained with Genji. They would sneak off to play in the arcade. So when it comes to mobility, Kiriko has no excuse. She can run up walls and teleport through walls to her team, which is her next ability, Swift Step, which at the moment has a very far distance. And now in the blog post, the hero designer Josh No comes in to explain the thought process on some of their decisions on these abilities. And he says, seeing your teammates die behind walls can be frustrating. You see your team's health bar ticking down through walls, but can't quite get a line of sight on them. Kiriko, of course, solves that problem if you have the awareness of the team fight to know where to go in and save someone. But as they go on to explain later, if you do have a teammate who looks like they're about to go down, it might be because there's some dangerous things over there. And so it's not always a good idea to teleport to just the first injured teammate you see. That might just get you killed as well. And keeping with the smack talk that this character likes, she has voice lines when she teleports to Cassidy, she'll say howdy. Or when she teleports to Mercy, she says, I'll be your angel. What I'm going to kind of hope they do with this ability is leave it incredibly overpowered, but I would prefer that her impact from, let's say, healing was just not very great. I think it would be cool to have a support that has the identity of like a low healing amount healer, but as we know, absolutely insane movement skill ceiling and damage output, specifically the pick potential. The ability everybody is worried about is the protection Suzu, which as they go to explain it here, makes it kind of sound like an Ana nade in a way, and I think that's probably a good way to think about it. Not quite the same throwing arc or size and everything, but functionally speaking, landing the second or so of immortality and cleanse on your teammate feels similar to needing to time a nade. You got to account for the travel, actually land the AoE so it hits what you're intending it to hit, and just like Ana, she can use it on herself. Notably, she doesn't have a way technically to self-heal, but of course, all supports have the support passive in Overwatch 2. So as long as she gets away, she'll be able to do that, but she can't necessarily stand up and fight and tank with more health like some other supports can. Keep that in mind. Protection Suzu, the devs did say counters sleep. It does cleanse that, so she can cleanse both Ana's abilities, but remember, Ana has two. She has one cleanse. So as long as you don't stack them on one target, like you sleep the Roadhog really early, then nade him immediately, one cleanse for two abilities, that's bad for Ana. But if you stagger them, you might still have an advantage anyway, at least in the neutral fight. Josh No explains, we wanted to make Protection Suzu an active ability that Kiriko could use to defend and engage with her team. We want to enable players to use this ability actively instead of holding onto it as a response to other abilities. That's pretty interesting considering it's a cleanse, right? It says here, during the Overwatch 2 beta, Noah explains, this sort of ability hoarding was something the team saw after Moira's updates were implemented. When we changed Moira's damage orb to necrotic orb, players held onto the ability for long periods of time. Of course, this is the weaken effect, which wasn't so good just tossed out generally, but could be insane if you landed it at the perfect time, especially against an ultimate. I might have some disagreement with Josh No on this, because I still think it is best used to, quote, hoard it. And in fact, high-level Overwatch often is based on ability hoarding anyway. Like whoever uses their sound barrier first usually loses, for example. Based on the simple principle, if you can move to dodge the effectiveness of a cooldown and then re-engage with yours, you always win that matchup, whatever ability we're talking about. Basically, there's abilities that break that rule and it's the opposite, but in any case, I think it's important here. What he's trying to say is that for like the average level of play, you still feel like you can do something if you're not hoarding the ability just to time to counter something. But I think the truth is her healing is so low and only single target that if you don't do that, I think you're just going to wish you had a different support. So in my own gameplay experience, this is like an area I feel like I'm pretty good at as a player because I can notice what's going on in the game. Like let's say if the enemy Rhine pins my tank, setting up to time the 1 second just right before the damage is about to land from the pin, that's like an insane trade of damage, right? Because it was going to be 300 or whatever it is in Overwatch 2, and it goes down to 0. Using Protection Suzu just like to walk in a little bit is sort of like the sound barrier example of using it too early. You want it when the fight's committed and ideally to counter something. So I don't know. Kind of weird that he's explaining it this way. I think if you spam this ability, it's just going to be terrible. So don't do that. He goes on to explain that the first version of Protection Suzu is going to be a smoke bomb, but it's just sort of blurred vision, caused visibility occlusion, especially when there's a Kiriko on both teams. That wasn't so fun. They say ultimately the final version of Protection Suzu fits with Kiriko's narrative, while also serving an important function not currently present in-game, as in they don't have another cleanse. Although strong, this ability does come with a cooldown that requires diligent judgment and timing. Kind of goes against what he said earlier, but enemies will watch for this ability prior to using ultimates and initiating fights. Another interesting use you might imagine for Protection Suzu. So the strongest use is if it counters a big burst of damage, but it also can help you traverse the map, getting your team into position. It's not the best at that. You might say like a Rhine shield is the easiest to just walk behind and get somewhere. But especially when in the game, there's a lot of heroes that don't have shields, like Junker Queen could be another tool to help someone vulnerable cross a gap. And imagine how nuts it would be to use it on like your Ana or Widowmaker, and they get a second to be able to shoot at the enemy without taking damage. I mean, that's kind of insane on paper. But when you think about it in practice, you could say the same thing about Batiste Lamp or just having a Mercy Pocket. Like all support kit is insane, okay? You still only get to pick 2 in the game, remember? Now her ultimate, Kitsune Rush, connects to her lore because she is a leader and her Fox work in tandem with her, similar to the dragons alongside Genji and Hanzo. The symbol of the Fox connects with her wittiness and mischievousness, and it increases teammates' move speed, attack speed, reload speed, and cooldown speed. Everything comes back faster. I think this is the most devastating ult in the game. Imagine if Ana could nano boost her whole team. Now, there's no defense in this, but characters that have defensive cooldowns maybe come back faster. The main thing, though, is just being able to WM1, having better breakpoints and stats on everything. The truth is, I don't actually know the breakpoints in some of the ult engages. Like, would you expect a sound barrier or transcendence to save you from a Kitsune Rush attack? Haven't properly tested these things myself. I think we know from playing Batiste that it sort of depends. In Overwatch 1, a sound barrier is not enough to keep one tank alive against a couple people shooting through a Batiste window, but is Transcendence. I'm interested in those interactions because although the rest of Kiriko's kit is pretty hard to get value on, to be honest, it's like there's many gaps to make errors and not land value in the neutral fight. The other supports have way more direct neutral fight value, but her ultimate, in contrast, is such a free win. Maybe that balances out, and there's many other offensive ways to punish people rushing at you. So once we get used to this engage style, are there things you could react with in time to not just get run over every time? Maybe. You might have to fight fire with fire in that regard. But considering she gets a cleanse for her team while rushing in, it might be tough to find something that guarantees you beat it. The developer update ended saying you don't change the world by following all the rules, which, considering the last few videos I've been making covering some of the rule changes for Overwatch 2, I feel like Kiriko in many ways is a very fitting first major new addition. I mean, the other characters were new, but not brand new, I feel. I can't wait for you guys to play her. I think the new mindset for Overwatch 2 is that it is a hero shooter game about doing crazy things and having fun. Kiriko is a lot of fun, and powerful abilities are the name of the game in Overwatch, alongside with the skillful shooter elements, and the build we played on felt like that to a T. I wish I was still playing it today. So I hope you guys are looking forward to the new character and content. We'll have more videos coming out soon about Overwatch 2. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it with a like, and don't forget to hit subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our new videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.